It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. We're always live as well on the free Odyssey app, streaming live on YouTube at the Team 980. And, of course, we are in Detroit for the 2024 NFL Draft. And there is one team that gets to talk about their pick faster than the Commanders. And one of the people who's talking about it is Danny Parkins, 670 The Score in Chicago. What's up, buddy?
What's up, Hoffman, man? Good to see you.
You as well. You as well.
I like that skin-tight white tee to show off the pecs.
Yeah, just a little
the
bit.
biceps.
I actually did some push-ups right before you came over.
Yeah, me too.
But that was because Brian Mitchell was sitting where you were, and I, standing.
I heard you challenged him to a pull-up contest.
No, I wouldn't do that.
Okay.
The thing actually you don't want to challenge B. Mitch to is a bike ride. The man does like century rides.
I don't want to challenge him to anything.
That's also probably a good point.
Yeah, I don't want to challenge him to anything.
Also, just in general, a challenged Brian Mitchell. He's quite the competitor.
Yeah.
That guy. Ted probably's got like the rings and stuff.
I respect you, sir. I'm not going to try to outrun you, out bench press you, or out anything you.
No, you can just talk.
Yeah,
Say
exactly.
You did.
Yeah.
So, like 1 to 10, it's what, like an 11 billion excitement level right now in Chicago, or are there nerves? Is there apprehension? Where are we at?
No, I mean, I think all that stuff's in the past in terms of the Fields, Caleb stuff. I think some people are still a little snake bit by Trubisky not working and Justin not working, so they're taking maybe a little bit more of a wait and see approach with Caleb, and they've been burned so many times that they want to actually see it on the field. But in terms of an acknowledgement that he's the right pick and this is incredibly exciting, there's universal agreement on that.
So one of the things that I think we've talked about quite a bit is the get it right versus make it right. In other words, there are quarterbacks like Andrew Luck who, we probably saw the worst version of Andrew Luck's career that was possible, right? He was so good that it had to take him getting bludgeoned to retire after 6 years. Peyton Manning, scheme-proof, etc. But for most players in any position, but nevertheless quarterback, it's about making yourself right and providing the right environment for a quarterback. How do you feel the Bears have done in that department?
I think that we've never seen a number 1 overall pick quarterback go into a better situation in the history of the NFL. Now, we've got questions about Matt Eberflus still and Shane Waldron, no question about it. So it's not the best situation a rookie quarterback has ever gone into. That would be Patrick Mahomes.
Sure.
They traded up from 27 to 10. He sat for a year behind Alex Smith. He got to be coached by Andy Reid, the best offensive mind since Bill Walsh.
Turned out all right.
Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce, Mitchell Schwartz at tackle. Turned out pretty well, right?
Yeah.
But in terms of a number 1 overall pick, just the guys in the last 20 years who have had comparable grades to Caleb Williams, Joe Burrow, Trevor Lawrence, Andrew Luck, they all went to 1 or 2 win teams. This is a 7-win team that has arguably the top wide receiver duo in the NFL, certainly a top 3 wide receiver duo in the NFL now that Keenan Allen is there with DJ Moore, plus Cole Kmet, plus Darnell Wright, who is all rookie at right tackle, a solid offensive line, a top 10 defense, good salary cap situation, good draft capital in terms of they've got the number 9 pick this year,
right,
which who knows whether it's the finishing piece to this defense as another defensive lineman pass rusher or Rome Odunze, a pass catcher for Caleb to throw to. I mean, this is an embarrassment of riches for a number 1 overall pick quarterback to walk into.
So let's talk about that 9th pick because that's actually the more intriguing thing, like draft-wise. And it's so funny because Caleb was so hyped coming into the year, and I'm sure you guys in Chicago have spent quite a bit of time talking about him, but it's been such a foregone conclusion that literally we've done 5 mock drafts, I think, on the show, and we go, okay, Caleb to Chicago next. And it's not just because
it's minus 5,000. It's off the board now.
Right.
You can't even really bet on it. It's such a lock.
It's not worth betting on. It's that much of a lock. The intrigue at 9, though, is fascinating to me because I think Chicago's presence there is going to shape what happens at 7 and 8, especially if Odunze neighbors or Marvin Harrison falls. If obviously Chicago could go multiple different directions, what is your dream scenario for the Bears at 9? Let's start there.
One of the 3 receivers, whichever one is there. I mean, I think that Marvin Harrison Jr. makes sense to be the top-ranked guy. He catches everything. That's a pretty good trait for a receiver.
Yeah.
Malik Neighbors is blazing fast and has some of that Jamar Chase, Odell Beckham in him where he can catch a 6-yard slant and take it 60 yards.
Right.
But Rome Odunze, he makes contested catches. He's big. He plays on the outside. He seems like a 10 out of 10 character guy.
Right.
His comps are Devontae Adams, DJ Moore, Larry Fitzgerald. That's pretty good if he's the 3rd best receiver. So I'll take any of those 3 at 9 just because Keenan Allen's 32 and he's only got 1 year left on his deal. And the Bears have invested a ton on the defensive side of the ball, both in draft capital since Ryan Poles has been there and in money spent. And they have a defensive head coach. So I think you need to keep throwing resources at offense. It's an offensive league, and supporting your rookie quarterback for years to come. So I want them to take the best player available on their board on the offensive side of the ball, and I'm hoping that it's a receiver.
So let's say the Bills, the Bengals, one of those teams trades up to 7, or Tennessee goes with the Cincinnati model. Obviously, Brian Callahan, their offensive coordinator. They take a Dunze. Neighbor goes to the Giants. Harrison goes to the Cardinals.
Yeah.
Now you're staring, though, at Joe Alt potentially falling down at 9. Do you go tackle back-to-back years, or do you go in a different direction, whether it's defensive finishing piece or whatever it is that you think?
So I think that they would go defensive finishing piece in that scenario, because Braxton Jones, the left tackle for the Bears, is a 5th-round pick out of Southern Utah that Ryan Poles selected. And so, that's his win. And he's good. I don't know that in 2 years you're going to love giving him $20 million a year,
right?
But he's good, and that's a win for this regime. So I would love them to take Joe Alt and just continue to support Caleb Williams. I'd be fine in that scenario with Brock Bowers. And, it's a luxury pick. It'd be a little gluttonous because they signed Gerald Everett to go with Cole Kmet. So It'd be a little smug. But I do just want them to support Caleb Williams. But if they think that Byron Murphy is an 8-year 3 technique, they're going to take him, especially because of who their head coach is. So in the scenario where it goes 4 quarterbacks, 3 receivers, and Joe Alt, 8 offensive players off the board, 1 through 8,
right,
which is definitely in play, especially if Atlanta trades out. In that scenario, I think Byron Murphy's the Bear.
Danny Parkins, 670 The Score from Chicago, is with us. Last question on that. The Bears only have 4 picks in this draft, though. What's the scenario where they trade out, or do you think that's not on the table for them?
No, I mean it's definitely on the table if they can. If the receiver is not there and there is a cluster of defensive players, if they think that Latu, Verse, Murphy all have similar grades, I could see them trading down a few spots. I think it would be tough. Who would people be trading up for in that scenario? I think maybe J.J. McCarthy would have to fall. I think maybe someone would have to be really in love with Michael Penix Jr. Maybe we'd have to see another in-division trade, because I don't think Ryan Poles wants to trade down too far. Would he trade down to 11 with the Vikings? The Lions and Vikings have done interdivision trades, so it's certainly possible that happens. They had to give up their 2nd this year for Montez Sweat, so I think he'd like to recoup that if he could. But I don't think he trades down if one of the receivers is on the board. And how Ryan Poles has talked about it is in groupings of years. So he only has 4 picks this year, but in a 3-draft span, he has 25 draft picks. And so he's that's enough players on rookie contracts to fill a roster. So that's how he looks at it. And he seems to be indicating that he's more inclined to have a second premium pick this year as opposed to stockpiling multiple assets.
Which is kind of like the Arizona theory of the case. Could they trade back? Sure, but eventually you need really good football players. And
they have got 11 picks this year, right?
Right.
So
it's what's the point?
Yeah, I don't think Arizona. I think Arizona would maybe trade down to 6.
Right.
I think.
Or if they can do the 11 back up to 5, which is kind of what they did last year.
Which is exactly what they did last year. Yeah, I don't anticipate them moving as far down as they did last year.
You also obviously keep a national eye. You do the podcast with Pony as well, which of course everyone can check out. Just search Danny's name on the free Odyssey app, and you can get all of his shows. Those are a combo plug for you.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. The Odyssey app is kind of a struggle sometimes with First and Pod, but it's wherever you get your podcasts, and hopefully on the Odyssey app.
There you go. Search for First and Pod.
Hopefully
our
you'll
bosses
find it.
would be very happy if you did that on the free Odyssey app.
Yeah.
But who to you is the most intriguing team in the first round?
Most intriguing team in the first round. Well, don't you think Cooper DeJean is going to be a Packer? They just feel like they should get
does kind of feel like that.
They feel like they should have a white corner from Iowa. I just think that makes a lot of sense.
It does. The only thing with them is they've got a bunch of extra capital, and I wonder if they're a team that trades up into the teens for a tackle. Because we did a mock on Take a Man the other day, and Logan and I got to 25, where the Packers are, and looked at each other and went, I hate this board. What? Yeah. I don't like anybody here. Because if the tackles go before that, DeJean goes to Philly, they're in a bad way. If I'm them, I'm getting up to 16 with Seattle, and I'm like, hey, I want to tackle. I'm coming up.
You think there's any chance the Chiefs trade up?
I think there's a chance.
Because they didn't last year for a receiver. It seemed to bite them all year. It didn't end up happening.
Right, and then they won the Super Bowl.
And then they won the Super Bowl. But at some point, Travis Kelce's not going to be Travis Kelce anymore. And Xavier Worthy on the Chiefs
feels unfair.
Trying to recreate the Tyreek Hill thing. Obviously, they got Tyreek Hill in the 5th round because of the off-the-field issues. But Xavier Worthy feels like an Andy Reid, Brett Veach pick to me, and I could see them moving up a bit for him.
So here's the thing that I would say with Kansas City or any team trading up for a receiver outside of if you're trading up for the top 3.
There's so many of them.
So exactly. So if you're Buffalo at 28 and you want to give up next year's one to go get Rome Odunze, I'm cool with it. Do it. 100%. I did it in a mock draft on our show yesterday. If I'm anybody else outside of someone trading for one of those top 3 guys, I'm just waiting because the difference in even Brian Thomas Jr., who's probably kind of in that tier by himself in the middle, and A.D. Mitchell and Troy Franklin and all these other dudes, I just don't think it's that big. I just wait.
I think Xavier, there's something about Xavier Worthy, man. The guy is the fastest player in the draft, and he's willing to go over the middle. It's a rare combination.
It is. He's also 165 pounds.
I know, but in this NFL, it feels like smaller receivers are able to produce more. It's not like in Brian Mitchell's era of the NFL. that guy is a punt returner, maybe.
Dead.
Yeah. So I think that there's a chance that guy could be really special, and so he's a guy I'm super intrigued about. Listen, man, if Minnesota can't trade up, and they traded for that second first-round pick from Houston, is there a chance that that's the pick that they take a quarterback?
I think that's interesting.
Are they gonna sit at 23, take best player available at 11, and then just take Bo Nix or take Michael Penix, take whatever quarterback's left at 23, and that's how they go about getting their Kirk Cousins replacement.
Are you buying this late Penix buzz at all?
Listen, everybody seems today, right? Penix has moved on the odds. The markets tend to get these things right. Latham has shot up in mock drafts today and is shot up in the gambling odds. It sounds like he might actually get taken before Joe Alt, which is very interesting. But Peter Schrager had that today. Daniel Jeremiah had that today. The gambling odds reflected it, that he might be a Charger at 5.
Yeah.
So I tend to trust the gambling markets on this sort of thing. So, I think there's a real chance that 6 quarterbacks get taken in the first round.
See, I think there's a chance at that. I don't buy this top. I mean, always Vegas at 13 is an option. But I just don't buy that an old dude with bad knees is going to be a top 15 pick at quarterback.
I wouldn't love it. And listen, you also understand, I wanted the Bears to take Fields, but there was an amount of desperation that went into that pick.
Yeah.
They traded a first-round pick to move up from 20 to 11, and he was the 4th quarterback taken in that class. Now, I would argue he was the second-best quarterback behind Trevor Lawrence, but still, taking the 4th or 5th or 6th quarterback in a given draft class in the first round and giving up assets to go up and get him is just normally a sign of desperation because you don't have any other answer at quarterback. It's not often and then we drafted our answer at quarterback for 10 years and it worked out.
Right. And by the way, all those picks that we gave up didn't matter. He was fine.
Yeah, there's very few, if any, examples of that in NFL history.
Speaking of which, this is actually one of the things we wrap up here with Danny Parkins. Again, first in pod and afternoons on 670 The Score in Chicago. One of the reasons I actually feel good about where Washington's at is they have this number 2 pick naturally, which is to say, unlike a Carson Wentz or so many of the other guys that have gone number 2 and failed, the trade up to 2, give up a bunch of stuff.
That's why Bryce Young's in trouble, right?
100%.
They don't have a first-round pick this year. They don't have a second-round pick next year. They had to give up the farm to get him, and then he spends the entirety of his rookie contract without other good young players to develop with.
Correct. That's one of the reasons that gives me hope for Daniels in Washington, presuming that is the pick. 1, would that be your pick if you were Washington? And 2, how do you feel about Daniels, presuming that he is?
I would pick Drake Maye. I don't get it. Drake Maye can throw the ball over the mountain. I mean, the guy looks like Josh Allen and Justin Herbert to me. I know the footwork is unrefined and all that, but if you have coaches who are good, they can coach the technicality out of it. He's the youngest brother in a family of athletes that overachieved and maximized with lesser talent around him. Jayden Daniels, crazy accurate, but he's throwing to Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas. Now, sometimes that is fine. Joe Burrow, C.J. Stroud.
Sure.
Sometimes it's not. Justin Fields. It would worry me how tall and skinny he is, and that there is a lot of stuff on Daniels that looks like, man, he put the ball exactly where he wanted, and that's awesome. But there isn't a ton of like the improvisational, off-platform stuff that shows that he's like a true improviser, and like when chaos breaks loose, that he can still make plays. That's not he can with his feet, but not with his arms. Whereas Drake Maye has a lot of that on film, and to me, that's the most valuable thing in the NFL. Like that's what shows me that you have a very high ceiling. Is if when things break down, can you make something out of nothing with your arm, not just with your legs? And so I get it. He's crazy productive. He won the Heisman. He's crazy accurate. Comes from a big program. Mobile. Seems like a good kid. It's not a bad pick, but I would take the guy who's got more improvisational ability, that has the stronger arm, and did more with less. I would take Drake Maye over Jayden Daniels.
I keep switching on all of them. My final rankings actually have McCarthy at 2.
See, I don't know how anyone who hasn't talked to him can say that. Like, you know what I mean? Like, because apparently everything with McCarthy is he's brilliant. You get him on film. You get him on the whiteboard. He's got this pedigree. But, like, you're telling me that you watched Michigan last year and thought that was the second best player in college football?
Yeah. I mean, when I watch his tape, all I see is NFL stuff.
Yeah. No.
There's no fluff to it. Like the ongoing joke that we've used is like, it's not even a joke. It's if you pull up the all throws reel on YouTube of Daniels and Maye, they're about an hour and a half each. Pull up JJ's and it's 48 minutes. So you get through it pretty quick.
Because they didn't ask
the whole 48 minutes is really damn good.
Cool, because for halves of football games, they would just hand off.
That is true. But then they have 3rd and 7 in the fourth quarter and have to dart one through an NFL window on an NFL concept, and he would do it.
Yeah.
And that speaks to me.
Okay. Hey, listen, by the way, this is why this is very difficult.
Yes.
And no one knows how to evaluate in the NFL when Myles Garrett or Micah Parsons is chasing you down. Do you panic or do you process it quickly? Right. No one has figured that out because they said it was the S2 test, and C.J. Stroud flunked the S2 test and then had one of the 3 greatest rookie seasons we've ever seen. So literally no one knows how to evaluate that. So we'll see.
Correct. And this is why it's hard, and yet we try every year.
Yeah.
Here we are. Danny will be talking about it. 670 Score in Chicago afternoon, so you can listen to that on the free Odyssey app, streaming live. Looks like you guys got a fancy camera set up over there, too. Twitch, YouTube, what are you guys doing?
Twitch, YouTube, our first ever Twitter broadcast, X broadcast tonight. We've got Dave Wanstead and Patrick Manley as our analysts. We'll have Shane Reardon inside the draft. We got Mark Grody at Hallis Hall covering the Bears stuff, so we expect to hear from Caleb Williams in the 9th overall pick. So we're going to be on all night through the Bears' second-round pick tonight.
Nice. And then you and Pony doing a First and Pod at some point?
I'll be doing First and Pod after the draft tonight. So I'm going to be in this Buffalo Wild Wings until like 1 in the morning. It's going to be horrible.
Nice.
Yeah, but I'll start.
I hope the kitchen's open late for you. That's really what
I hope so too.
You.
As long as that bucket of ice and beer stays cold, because I'll definitely start drinking around 9 p.m., I think.
So if you want Danny, depending on how much he eats, it could just be the one beer. All of a sudden, boom.
No. At least 3. At least 3.
Sorry,
at least 3.
That was rude. I should have given you more credit.
It's okay.
Danny Parkins, everybody.
Go do some more push-ups.
Hey, this is DA, and you're listening to The Hoffman Show on the Team 980 and the Odyssey app.